Welcome back to Life Behind the Curtains. This is a space where we move beyond titles, achievements, and social media highlights and talk about the real stories people carry quietly behind the curtains. The struggles, the pressure, the healing, the moments that changes us. I've always believed that some of the most powerful conversations are not with the loudest people in the room, but with people who have truly lived through something. And that's why I'm genuinely excited about today's episode because today's guest is someone who has experienced pressure, burnout, uncertainty, healing, reinvention, and resilience in a deeply human way. So, from what I've heard from working in recruitment and high pressure industries to rebuilding his life through coaching, well being, mindset work, and even navigating a brain tumor journey, his story is not about success, it's about transformation. And honestly, I think a lot of people today listening will connect with this conversation deeply. Whether you're a student trying to figure life out, someone carrying silent pressure, someone just exhausted from work, or simply someone trying to feel mentally okay again, this conversation is for you. So, Damon, thank you genuinely for being here. Welcome to Life Behind the Curtains. Tell me how you're doing.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm doing good. I've had a nice kind of a week. It's kind of a week of not too much, but enough. Where I've got the balance right. They don't always happen, do they? But this week, the
Yeah.
balance has been quite good.
Good, good. So, I start off with one fancy question. So, what was the moment in your life when you realized stress was no longer just normal stress?
Um, oh, I think. Well, I'm not sure if it. I realised, but I always remember I was living in Hong Kong, and my job was I was in recruitment at the time, and I'd been
Yeah.
there about a year, and it was going okay. But I was also I was struggling actually. The pressure was on. I was kind of someone fairly senior in the team,
Hmm.
and I wasn't performing. And part of that might have been due to the lifestyle, and part of that might just been me, and maybe it's the market as well. But I remember going to the doctor, just saying I've got this headache, and it's just I feel like I've got this pressure.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and he was a Chinese doctor, kind of bridging, kind of West. He basically he treated personally. It was great. He could have looked at me, and there was no judgment, but he just said to me, well, that's stress. So I can give you something, but you need to kind of deal with the stress. And I didn't really appreciate what he was saying because at the time I was in a bit of a bad place and I was trying to figure myself out. And I wanted him to kind of give me a solution and make me better kind of straight away and kind of get rid of this pressure I was feeling. But I think it was self-inflicted pressure. But I think that's probably the first real memory of kind of stress being like this. I just want to get out of here and I want someone to just make it better, and I didn't know how to do that.
Got it. When you talk about this business and all, so you worked in recruitment, business coaching, and gone through your personal health battles. What do you think? Which version of Damon do you think changed you the most?
Which version of Damon?
Changed you
um
the most?
well, I guess the big thing that changed me was I don't know if it. Well, I like quite like the version of me now
Mm,
because it's the version that I've learned from. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've still got lots of things to learn,
yeah.
but I'm kinder to myself now, and I'm more self-aware. I guess the real pivotal moment in my life was so, as you could have mentioned in the intro, and just for people who are listening, so about just over 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and
Yeah.
that was, there's a lot of stress involved in that.
Yeah.
Naturally, I think that's going to probably quite an obvious thing to kind of say. And my diagnosis is I'm a grade two, an astrocytoma grade two, which out of four, which they've kind of done away with. They still use them, but they've done away with kind of benign and malignant kind of terms because benign quite benign by definition sounds as it's kind of it's friendly and it's not invasive. But actually, brain tumors, even the lower grade ones, can still be kind of
Yeah.
they can turn into something. So I'm out of four. I'm a grade two, which meant that my diagnosis was it's low grade, slow growing, I would be booked in for an operation if I wanted to, which I did have. But the operation was to remove as much as possible safely, and then you're left with like 10% left in there, and they kind of monitor you to kind of
Yeah.
every 6 months you have a scan and they see what it's doing. And for the first 18 months, I'd go in for a scan every 6 months. I'd feel pretty powerless, and I'd just kind of cross my fingers and hope that
Mm.
nothing changed. And then after, it was the summer of May 2021. And I went in, and the big fear came true, and they said it's been growing. It's not complete. They didn't use the words "a not complete disaster," but they said, "Look, let's get ahead of the curve. We can have some treatments, and we can do something." Um, but this was kind of everything just felt like it was happening to me, and people were talking around me, and I was just powerless. And I I just turned 40, and all I could think to myself was, am I going to live to see 50? And I didn't know the answer to that. And because one thing they always, I'd been told is that these tumors grow slowly, and then at some point they like to grow a bit faster. And that's when, once they get quicker at growing, that's when it's really hard to kind of reverse it. Um, so that summer I felt the fear, and I was pretty much at the lowest I've ever been. The stress was there and everything. I genuinely thought I haven't got much time left. It's
Mm.
and it scared the absolute bejesus out of me. But then something happened that summer, and so this was June time. I was looking at treatment starting in September,
Mm.
and in those 3 months, I had a really nice consultant. He said, "Look, go away." Um, and just try and enjoy the summer. Just get yourself ready for treatment in September. We have got a bit of time. It's not, then just get yourself in the best mental and physical and emotional state that you can. And I had no idea how to do that. So one day I went over to see my uncle in early June, and we were kind of just chatting, and he said, a friend of mine, he's just kind of beaten bowel cancer, and he used this book, and it's called Radical Remissions: Surviving Cancer Against the Odds, the 9 Key Factors that People have in common. And it's written by a lady called Dr. Kelly Turner. She used to work in cancer wards over in Los Angeles or California somewhere. And she then started this research project because she started to get really curious as to why people were kind of having these spontaneous remissions. And she was like, well, let's find out what's kind of going on here, because a lot of this isn't documented. We document all the crap stuff, but we don't
Mm.
document the kind of positive cases. And then when she looked at it, there were these 9 factors that people have in common. They would change your diet, use herbs and supplements, and then the other 7 were mental, emotional, and spiritual. So deepen your spirituality, find trust your intuition, take control of your health, create positive emotions, release negative emotions, and have strong reasons to live. So all of those, I listened to. I was like, that's accessible, and there's so many case studies, and it's been a growing resource. I
Mm.
think she started back in 2014, and it's been building and building, and each year there's more and more kind of testimonies and case studies and examples of people with all different types of cancers, whether it's brain tumors, liver cancer, whatever it may be, but all these positive success stories. So when I went over to my uncle that day, he gave me this book, and just, I guess it must have taken a few days, but it was the first glimmer of hope. I was like, okay. And there was one story in there with a guy with a brain tumor. I was like, okay, okay. And he had a really aggressive type, and he went down to South America and meditated for 2 years, which I appreciate. We don't always have 2 years to go to South America to meditate, but it was the start of my proof. I was like, okay, that's some proof. So I found that. And then at the same time, I found this crazy guy called Wim Hof, this Dutch man known as the Iceman, was saying that his message was through the breath and through the cold exposure and
Mm.
through mindset and belief systems, we can heal. Our bodies are wonderful machines, but we live in a world of constant low level stress. So we need to kind of start exposing ourselves to conscious kind of stress, like an ice bath or like a sauna or like a breath hold in a breathwork session, or fasting. And these forms of stress were actually good for us and stimulate our adaptive immune system and help us heal. And I just heard this guy, he didn't say it quite like that, but the message I was hearing is we are all powerful. We can do the breath, we can do the cold, and it can re-regulate our bodies and our systems. and we can heal ourselves because at the heart of all disease is inflammation. And by doing this, we can start to reduce inflammation, boost our immune systems, and re-regulate our nervous systems. And I was like, I I didn't really look into the science of it. I just felt something from this guy. I was like, okay, I trust you. I'm going with this. And
Mm.
I started practicing the breath work. I started doing the cold exposure. I'd have a shower, then gradually turn it cold at the end for 15 seconds, and then build up and build up
Yeah.
until I got to 2 minutes. And it just made me feel good. So
Mm.
even before I'd really started researching into what the science behind this was going on, I just started feeling better about myself. Part of that might be a placebo of I'm taking control, but it all also made me like quite literally gave me some happy hormones and made me feel good about myself. And I think in that moment, that's when that all happened that summer. That's
Mm.
when I changed, or I maybe went back to a very earlier version of myself. You know, the happy, free kind of like the one that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still get stressed every day, and it's not about never getting stressed. It's
Yeah.
about having more control over your stress
Yeah.
or just reducing the time you're there. And I think that summer I found the old me that was maybe 12 years old
Mm.
before he'd been kind of worn down a bit by everything that kind of goes on in the world. And I found this new belief system, which was maybe my old belief system of like, we are powerful beings. We can
Yeah.
do anything we put our minds to, and our minds are, take control of your mind, and then you've
Got it.
taken control of everything. So that was, yeah, I think that was the moment in my life that everything changed.
Good to know. Good to know, like you're doing really well in your life as well. So now coming to like, I really want to talk about the modern pressure, burnout, and the mental exhaustion. Many people
Mm,
today feel like they are constantly trying to prove themselves, even though like, even though I sometimes feel like I'm also in the same situation, not trying to fall behind, always trying to achieve more. So I also have heard from a lot of my friends, like they're telling like they feel mentally exhausted. Even working
mm,
professionals feel drained after work, no energy to go to gym, routines, or personal growth. So my question is really simple. So why do so many people today feel mentally exhausted and constantly under pressure? And the second one is that how they can rebuild energy or discipline when someone already feels exhausted.
mm. Um, very good question, and not necessarily, I mean, an easy one to kind of start to kind of tackle, I guess. We as humans, we were designed to have a stress response to a physical stressor, to the saber-toothed tiger that came along, or the cold or the heat. And we would have a stress response that would help protect us from that. We now live in a world where our stresses they're not physical anymore.
Mm,
Some of them are still physical, but they're mental and emotional. They're our
yeah,
jobs and they're other people, our perception of what other people think of us. And so we're putting all these pressures and stresses on the world is putting some of them on, but quite a lot of the ones, if I look at my past, it's me putting stress and pressure on myself because ultimately it's mental and it's emotional. When something is mental, that does mean that we have some power over it. When we can get to the source of kind of what's going on, quite simply, we can to a certain extent just say, I choose to let go of this stress. And by saying that, it might sound very simple to people listening and thinking, that doesn't
yeah.
work, but it's a start. When you believe something, it is a start. But the reason we get so stressed and burnt out is because we put too much pressure on ourselves. We don't give ourselves the time and space, and we lead busy lives. So there's deadlines, there's kids, there's
Yeah.
family, there's all these things to kind of balance. But quite often we're not carving out, even if it's just 5 minutes for ourselves. And even when we do that, we're quite often thinking about the stressful things or the things that we haven't done, or we don't just kind of sit there and actually quieten our brain, or just let things be. We're still stressing when we're actually relaxing, if that makes any sense. It's kind of almost like it's going on in the background. So I think the key to kind of combating things like burnout and kind of constant stress is learning to kind of learning to physically re-regulate your body, but also learning to kind of understand and give yourself a bit of time and space. Talk to yourself
Yeah.
nicely. Let go of thoughts. Thoughts are like the weather. We give energy to thoughts, and they become thinking and overthinking and stress. But if we could actually just learn to kind of change our perceptions and when stressful things happen to us, just have a little what's the word I'm looking for? Like a method, have a routine almost like okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes just to step back from this. This email's just sent to me.
Mm,
I don't like it. My initial response is to reply back. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to accept this stress, and then I'm going to choose to let it go, or use it for some positive. But I need to accept it in the first place. I can't just push it down, and kind of
yeah.
pretend it's not there. I think one of the biggest, as humans, we've got a little too good at tolerating stress.
Mm,
So we're really good at pushing through, pushing through, pushing through. But it has a long-term consequence. And part of that pushing through is, I think, because we're not accepting in the moment. And acceptance can sometimes be confused with agreeing with a situation. So, but we have to accept something to then be able to kind of do something about it and have a response to that kind of stressful situation. So something I talk to people a lot about is have your stress response. We're emotional, mental, kind of psychological beings. Things will happen. Um, Something will happen. I'll get stressed and have an emotion, have a kind of feel it kind of in my body. It's then accepting that, and going, that's a natural process. I'm going to let it happen, and then I'm going to respond. And that's when you have a kind of a toolkit of like, I'm going to do some breathing. I'm going to change my environment, walk away, walk around the
yeah.
block for whatever it may be. Going to drink some water. I'm maybe going to listen to music that either speeds me up or calms me down, whatever's kind of whatever it may be.
Mm,
But I'm going to look at all these simple things, but that can actually change my environment, change my being, almost change what's um, affect me, and change my energy.
sure.
Yeah.
It's a nice perspective. That's, I think, this is what most of the young people like me have to understand. That's a thing we are missing. And also, I feel like personal and professional life are deeply connected. I'm a person who believes like that. So if one is struggling, the other is impacted. So how do we
Mm.
break the cycle between personal well-being and professional performance? What do you think about that?
I think it's probably, I'd say it's not about breaking the cycle. It's as you know, you have that knowledge and you've said it already. It's about understanding that it's really hard to what you do in one area of your life, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Um, so it's actually fixing the core, the inner person, and then that person will be able to kind of show up in different areas in the same way. But maybe another thing to kind of think about and to kind of look at your question in a slightly different way is it is healthy for us to kind of, and it's better for us to have a have some guidelines and some boundaries for ourselves because ever since even before COVID it was starting to happen, but since COVID and kind of more people working from home, the boundaries between and technology, if I look at when I started my career 25 years ago, whenever it may be, I had a mobile phone, but it was just it was a Nokia 3210. You could play Stake on it, you couldn't get emails. Now so when I finished work at 6, when I first started recruitment, that was it. I didn't know about the emails until the next morning. Whereas now we're accessible all the time. So that's taken its kind of toll. So it's it's about kind of having some guidelines and some boundaries for ourselves and saying if I am going to be working at home, that's fine, but I have to kind of give myself some boundaries. And sometimes we
Yeah.
can go over them. That's normal because you might have someone kind of say, right, can I just speak to you tonight? And you think, okay, we'll do that. But if it's consistently, if it's once every couple of weeks, that's fine. Or kind of once a week, maybe you have to have a call
Mm,
that's a little bit later. But if it's consistently, so having a look at our lifestyles and thinking what guidelines and what boundaries do I need to kind of put in place that I
exactly.
can differentiate between the two and give myself a mental and physical break? Because without
Exactly.
that, but it is confusing, isn't it? It's hard.
It's actually that's a one thing what I'm struggling at put the boundaries. It's not easy actually. And also one of the
Hmm.
most important question that I ask myself is, where should people exactly have to start? It's mind or routine?
Ooh. Well, they feed each other, I guess.
Mm,
I would say to start with, it's almost designing what you want your mind to be like. I think, I guess it's thinking about what do we do every day. Um, and because the things that we do every day have the most influence on us. That is part of routine, but it's not necessarily kind of looking at routine straight away. It's so breathing is something we do every day. Talking to ourselves is something we do every day. So we need to kind of get kinder with the way we talk to ourselves. We need to be a bit more conscious with the way we're breathing on a daily basis, because that then will feed our routine. And the routine, they can both kind of have an effect on each other. Um, so I guess some simple things that could have first spring to mind is like with routine as an example is, you know, when evening time is turning off, having a rule that after 9 o'clock we don't look at screens, things that are going to stimulate us, so that when we go to sleep, our brain's still whirring away and the blue light has kind of affected us and meant that it's really hard to kind of get to sleep because if we can get deep sleep, that's when we rest and repair, and the body does everything it's meant to. So, um, I think that's a really good question because it's about finding the balance between doing some small, looking at your routine and keeping it simple, but also doing some looking at the mind as well, because they can feed each other. But one of the biggest challenges I think that I see when we're trying to change new habits, create new habits, is we try and do too much and we want too much too quickly, because we want to get out of the way we're feeling
yeah,
quite often. But actually, if we can kind of just slow things down and appreciate that habits change with neurologically, it's like habits are forming new habits, like walking into a field that's got no path. So you have to kind of go walk through that field a few times to have a track there. And that's the same way in neural pathways. You have to do something a certain amount of time to actually create a new neural pathway, which is your new habit. So it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, but it is.
mm,
It's giving ourselves a bit of time and space and saying to ourselves, okay, I'm going to make some changes, but I'm just going to start with one little change and I'm going to do
mm,
that consistently,
yeah,
because then I won't give up. Because if you try and do too many things
yeah,
after a week, you have a bit of energy the first week and you're all excited by it. You have it. You're like, yeah, yeah, I've got this.
yeah,
And then after a week, things drop away because you're like, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. Whereas if you just think about just one
one
thing
thing.
and do it well, and even if it's small, just keep doing it for 30
Mm,
days and that will help you. Then you'll feel better about yourself. And habits are formed best when we do things, when we build momentum.
exactly, yeah.
I I was running a workshop on kind of stress today and kind of change and habits. And one
Mm,
of the things I said is, and I use this analogy all the time, if you're looking to climb Everest, you don't have to climb the mountain in one day straight away. We can actually just start by buying a pair of hiking boots and having a walk around the garden. Um,
mm,
just small sustainable habits start by doing, all long-term sustainable habits start by doing small things on a daily basis, just keeping it simple, just one, and then build on that, build and build and build. It's like, a snowball getting
correct.
bigger and bigger and bigger. So it will, but we need to have a bit of patience and
Mhm.
look for just a small little
So,
improvement. Because if we expect us to be euphoric, after a couple of days, then it's not reality. We It does take a little bit of time to change. So just not give up and just think, okay, it's all right. I just need to put in the time and effort, but but also give yourself the permission that, um, it will take a little bit of time. Doesn't mean to say it's going to be a rocky road all the way. There'll be ups and downs. There'll be some days that they're better than
yeah.
others. Um,
So it's really important to have that momentum, uh, keep that one habit, even though it's a little habit, keep that momentum always. It's good to know that, and a nice perspective as well. So next section is about like I want to talk about like close relationships as well. So why do so many people nowadays feel lonely even when they are surrounded by a lot of people?
hmm. Yeah, very good question. I think, um, I guess when we feel lonely, if I think about myself, when I've felt lonely in a crowded room, it's because I've got stuff going on internally and
Exactly.
I haven't kind of dealt with it. Um, and I'm probably putting too much pressure on myself. One of the other traps that it's so easy to fall into in the lifestyle that we lead with technology, phones, Instagram, all these different forms of communication is that we get our connection from people in ways that they do a little bit, but they don't give us the full connection that we really kind of need. Um, and but so you and I, if we're talking, we get the chemical oxytocin from. It was designed from centuries ago. Hunter gatherers, they get oxytocin as a reward of being feel good for connection with people.
Mhm.
So it's kind of encouraging you to kind of stay part of the tribe and help each other, and you get that kind of that physical human connection. You can even get it from touching trees. You can get oxytocin. So it's having that physical human connection, and not
Right.
necessarily in an intimate way, but just
Mm.
or a romantic, more just having perhaps dare I say it as well, if we are in a crowded room and we feel a bit lonely, maybe we're surrounding ourselves with the wrong people in our lives, which is a little bit tricky sometimes. But it might mean not everyone, but there might be some people who are draining our energy, and maybe it's just the wrong time for them to be a bigger part of our life. Maybe we need to give them a bit of space and actually say, here are my boundaries. Here's what I need. There is here's what I need for me and for my kind of own well-being, because there is that. I've heard it mentioned quite a few times. You are the reflection of the four or five people who you're closest to in your life. So their habits and their kind of energy will essentially affect you and yours to them. But so that's something to kind of be mindful of. But I guess when we're thinking about being lonely in a crowded room or feeling lonely, it's starting with a lack of engagement.
Mm.
Because when we don't feel well or we're not feeling mentally good, our initial reaction is to kind of retreat, isn't it? And go, oh, someone says, "Are you coming out tonight, or are you coming for lunch, or whatever it may be?" And you're like, "No, no, no." We don't feel like interacting because we think that everyone else is kind of maybe there's a bit of judgment but um, so we do need our own space. We need our own
Exactly.
time, but we also need connection as well. And it's really useful to have people that you can go to, and you're not going to be judged. And because we're probably all going through something, it'll show up differently in everyone's lives. But having a place where you can just kind of go and hang out with friends without judgment, friends,
Mhm.
family, whatever it may be, Toastmasters that you and me go to,
Yeah.
I know that I can walk in there and even if I've had a stressful day, I get energy from the people around me.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
we've all got stuff going on, but so I'd perhaps challenge people if they are feeling the loneliness, to have a look at their lives and think, what can I do, A, for me, but also where can I maybe just put myself out of my comfort zone a little bit and just get a bit of connection and maybe join a group. Maybe it's pottery, maybe it's cycling, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
but just so you get some in-person communication as opposed to connection through because we can all get dopamine hits from Instagram and Facebook and social media, but they're quick. We haven't worked for them properly, and the body is designed. We get dopamine as a result of putting effort into things.
Oh,
So when you do like if you do 20 push-ups or whatever it may be, or if you complete a project, you get the dopamine to kind of keep you
yeah.
going. But you also get it as a reward for completing it as well of like, oh, well, you did that. Well done. You can do it
Mhm.
again. And it's kind of, it's designed to kind of motivate us. It's a motivation module. So that's how we get it, but it can be deregulated by going onto Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, and you get a like and you get a quick dopamine spike. But
Yeah.
because you haven't worked for it, then you go crashing back down, and that's when the loneliness, that's when the feelings of anxiety kind of creep in because basically it's kind of like a sugar rush. You go up
Mm.
quickly and then you come down,
Come
and
down.
your body's going, we've given you all these chemicals to make you feel good falsely,
Yeah.
and now we've used too much almost, so you're a bit depleted. And then that affects the way you get your dopamine in the future. So um, it has a bit of a spiral effect. So something as simple as there's a great book out there for people listening called The Dose Effect by TJ Power. And
Mm-hmm.
there's dose for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, so the happy hormones. And it's ultimately how to re-regulate your body so that you get these hormones naturally, so they can do all the things they're meant to do to make you feel good and heal you and repair. Um, and one of them is, well, there's things like tidying your room, and it sounds simple, but we all feel good when we tidy our room or our office.
Yeah.
And there's also phone fasting, you don't have to do it for days. You can just say, right, between the hours of 8 and 10 when I get in, I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to put it upstairs or put it away somewhere, um, and just and you start to build mental strength that way as well. But you also realise, and Jeevan, have you ever gone out for a walk and suddenly realised you've forgotten your phone? Um, I haven't done it for a long time, but I know when I have done it, I get back and the world's still spinning. People are still around. Nothing's changed. No one's died, and it's like, oh, and I'm still okay. And actually, it was quite nice to actually. But we think we're missing out on things, or that we need to be reacting to stuff, or someone sent me a message, someone sent me an email. I need to be kind of. So one of the hardest things, I think, if we can give ourselves a few boundaries around it's okay to not respond to an email or even to a text message after 8 o'clock. And if you kind of tell your friends that, then they'll know that it's not personal. It's not me kind of not being interested or not wanting your friendship or family members. I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to look after myself here and actually re-regulate my kind of nervous system and kind of dopamine release. And it's everything's going to be fine. But but
That's a
we get trapped, don't we?
that's a lot. I think like my next question, you have answered that question, answered a in your previous question, but I don't want to skip that question. But
Mm.
what do you think? Do modern relationship really suffer because people are mentally overwhelmed all the time?
I So to answer that question, I think there's partly the kind of the overwhelm, but perhaps it's also to do with our expectations of other people. When we have expectations of them, um, we haven't always got into an agreement with that person to see if they meet our expectations. It's just something we have on with our friends and our family.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So what expectations? It's great when they're met, but when they're not met, it then leads to disappointments and we we don't know what's going on in other people's lives half the time. So um, it's being able to have a bit of empathy for your friends and understand that if your friends and family aren't necessarily giving you everything you need, it's not because they don't love you or want to be with you
Yeah.
or see you. It's because they're trying to do their own thing as well, and they're doing their best to kind of manage their life and balance things. And so, friendships and relationships do kind of get affected in that way. So I think one of the things I've done with one of my clients, or quite a few clients actually, since I did it with this one person, is I have a client and she's a mother. She's got two kids and a husband. She's got quite a stressful job,
Hmm.
and feels guilty when she's kind of having her own time because wants to be with kids, wants to be with the husband. So in order to kind of give herself permission, I she could have created this chart that would kind of go up on the fridge, and it would be well, here are the sort of there's things like the chores that we can all kind of do because we're all a team. But then there's also kind of saying, I'm going to have my own time now, and it's going to be half an hour for me. And I think we all need to keep each other accountable. So, you need to have your own time. We all need to have our own time. So that everyone's doing it and everyone buys into it. And it's not and most of the time, kids, I know when I was a kid, I wanted people's attention all the time. But you as long as it's done in the right way, you appreciate, eventually that okay, I just need to wait a little bit longer, and I'll get some attention again. Um, but I think it is if we can have these open conversations with our friends and families, saying, "Well, let's help each other out here. I need my own time. It's not about you. It's actually about me getting what I need. So you have yours too, and hopefully that gives permission for each other to kind of have that time that you need to kind of give yourself the space to breathe and reset because otherwise we do feel pulled all over the place. You like everyone wants a piece of me, and it's like that. It's like
Yeah.
I just need to breathe.
Cool. And you often talk about subconscious programming. So, in simple
Mm.
words, what does that actually mean for an everyday person?
Yeah, it means it's all the things that are kind of going on in the background. So we have
Mm.
all been shaped by the world and
Yeah.
through our experiences, and 95% of the day essentially we're on autopilot. So we could have some of it's things like motorology, motor, we're walking around, so it's kind of the physical elements, but also our brain and how we interact with the world, how we're interpreting things. We're kind of in this subconscious programming. It's our belief system that's been shaped by all the things that have happened to us. So every day we're engaging with the world. You say something to me, I interpret in a certain way without even realizing it because of what I've experienced through life. So you can say the same thing to 20 different people and get 20 different answers because I'd say, what does money mean to you? And it can mean 20 different things. So we all have these different interpretations, and that's our subconscious kind of working away in the background. And it's great because it means we don't have to think about too much, and we can actually kind of because conscious when you're the conscious mind, it takes more energy. So it's our body's way of trying to save us a bit of energy and go, okay, you've learned that, so we're not going to have to kind of relearn it every time. So the subconscious is great because it means we can interpret, engage, and interact with people. But the danger is that little bits of stress can kind of sneak in there. And we make assumptions that because something happened once in the past, that it's going to happen again, and that will cause a bit of stress, and we don't really realize it's kind of happening. Um, so when we can kind of, through a bit of self-reflection and awareness, we can start to kind of fine-tune our subconscious. But conscious energy takes a bit more conscious thought.
Mm.
It takes a bit more energy because we're already having to, every single bodily process we have requires us to use energy. We metabolize glucose and oxygen, down into our lungs, into our blood, into our cells. We metabolize glucose and oxygen that give us the energy to do everything, whether it's blinking, thinking, sweating, running, talking. So it's kind of looking at energy preservation here, or kind of how we use our energy. Um, Jeevan, I've completely forgotten what's the question you asked me
No, I
before.
was talking about subconscious programming. Yeah,
Subconscious,
yeah,
yes, yeah. So it's conscious choice does take, and that's how new habits form. And we'll do a bit of conscious choice every day, but a lot of the day, 95% of it is in our subconscious, and that's our background. It's like the iOS program. Every now and then we could do with a bit of an upgrade, kind of
yeah.
change some of the habits that we're doing because the world's changed, we've changed, and the environment's changed. So yeah, a little change of our subconscious habits, the things that run away in the back, run around in the background, it's helping us kind of live a life without too much extra effort. Ultimately, yeah.
Thanks for that. And also, like when nowadays, when you open social media or Instagram, you see a lot of reels, like constantly telling people about to hustle, improve, achieve more. Do you think we have forgotten how to simply be present nowadays?
Mm, yeah, very much so. Yeah, and yeah, because sometimes it can be. I'm going to say it can be scary to be present, but my first thought when you said be present is like, oh, do I have to sit with my own thoughts? And
Mm.
that could be a scary thought for some people. But one of the challenges is that we are wired to kind of be looking to protect ourselves and kind of anticipate what's happening, and and that's a bit of that subconscious as well. But the danger with that, or the kind of not even a danger, let's call it the consequence of that, of thinking about the past or thinking about the future, is that that's where stress kind of comes in. Um, when we can just remain right here, right now, in the present, we there's less stress involved in the present.
Mm.
There is some stress naturally, but a lot of the time, if we're trying to think about the future and think about what might happen, it hasn't happened yet. We're already kind of creating more stress for ourselves. We don't need to.
Got it.
and things that have happened in the past, well, we can't change them, but we will do this. We ruminate on stuff in the past, and we could have worried about what might happen in the future, but we have just lost the ability to kind of just be present. And you and I are talking right here, right now, and just let's just be here right now. And I'm listening to you, you're listening to me, and that's all we need to do. And but we live in a world of distraction, don't we? So
Yeah.
it is hard. And we've got these phones, they ping all the time, then and then there's other things like a noise will happen outside. It's like, oh, so
Mm.
we're naturally we're curious beings, but we have got a little too distracted. So it's just the art of practicing being present. And you could wake up in the morning, and this could be the little challenge you set yourself and say, I'm just going to try and be present with people I talk to today. And it's as simple as that. Because quite often we're thinking about other things on our mind because we live these busy, kind of stressful lives. I could be talking to you and I'm still thinking, oh, I've got a presentation tomorrow. Oh, have I done that? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, you can still think about that, but I can do it when I've stopped talking to you, and I can just allow 10 minutes to think about that later on. But
Got it.
it's the brain's kind of constantly doing stuff. So,
Exactly.
um,
Got it.
mm,
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now I would like to go through your journey actually. So yesterday I was going through some of your YouTube video and found out like I don't know, you remember like it was long time back about the Journey song. You created a song called The
yeah.
Journey. So what
Mm.
emotions were you trying to express through it? And do you think music can heal people in ways conversation sometimes can't?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, I love that. Well, I wrote that song when I was living back in Dubai when I was kind of 2009 at the time, and I was in quite a bad place
Mm,
mentally, and I was probably drinking too much. In fact, I definitely was, and I just wasn't. I didn't have confidence, and yeah, I was struggling a bit. But music was my way of kind of being able to kind of say things and get them out. And maybe there's a little bit of me that thought, it'd be nice to be on a stage and people be there for me and I'd feel good. And that never probably really got there. But that song was ultimately about you're going to find struggles in life, but there's always people around you who you can open up to, and they can help lead you there. They can help you along the way. And we'll wander off on from time to time, and we can just come back to the center again. That's life's never a straight line. It's kind of, I
yeah,
think that song is about the zigzags, and knowing that it's actually going to be okay.
got it.
So I think that was what that, and music can definitely heal because it's almost like it's like pets. They don't
Mm,
talk back. Music doesn't talk back. It's whatever you want it to be. You could put your interpretation of, and quite literally sound as well, vibrations. We are all energy.
yeah,
Quantum physics dictates that we're all energy. So that sound of the music vibrating through you, it's good for you. And if you can put some meaning to those words as well, even better. So yeah,
got it.
it certainly
Got it.
heals. Yeah.
It was a nice song, by the way. Like I want you to sing maybe in our upcoming meeting or something. So that's nice. And just leave all this coaching and well-being thing before coaching and well-being. I want to know who was that Damon during the corporate and recruitment years.
Hmm. I mean, I think I was ultimately, if you ask my friends, I was and family, I was still the same person. I just didn't have the
Mm,
confidence. My self-talk was probably pretty bad. I'd beat myself up all the time. I'd feel judgment from other people, even if they're not giving it. I had a big fear of judgment. So ultimately, I was still the same person, but I just didn't have the confidence. Um, yeah, I didn't have the self-belief. And I just probably wasn't very good to myself, and maybe I made decisions that weren't good for me, and maybe weren't good for other people as well. It's more than likely. In fact, it's certainly more than likely. So I was still the me, but I probably wasn't showing up how I wanted to. Um, but I do believe that we're all where we're meant to be in life. When I was in recruitment and full time and doing that kind of stuff, I honestly believe we all do the best we can in any given situation based on where we are in life. So I was kind of doing the best I could in all that time. I was still me, but I was probably just a different version of me. And I think yeah, confidence and self belief was probably the key
Mm.
thing. Yeah.
And you talked about your brain tumor journey. So, how did this tumor journey like change the way you see fear, time, and purpose? I know like you have a lot to talk about that.
Mm. Well, I mean, to start with, it changed it in terms because you know, just thought my life is limited, and so you have the fear of I'm going to die young. But then, so it's been a roller coaster kind of journey. But the first 18 months, it was very much it changed my perception. So you have a bit of like, okay, I need to live for today, but you also have the fear of like, oh, I don't want to die, and that's very real. But then when I found Wim Hof and all this other world of health and healing, then it then has given me a new perspective and kind of new belief in not just mine, everybody's body and how amazing these machines are. And I guess one of the so I have a new perspective on life, which is I guess at the heart of it is we need to look after ourselves. Because when you can look after yourself and be good to yourself in all the different ways, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and chemically, foods you eat, all these different things. So the more you look after yourself, the better you are for the people around you. And I think that's at the heart of that helps me make decisions these days, like what am I why am I doing this? Is it for me or is it for other people? And if it's for other people, that's fine. But if it's going against what I believe and what's good for me and my kind of my purpose, my spirit, my soul, then quite often we can do things in life that we think we should be doing because maybe we think society thinks that's how we should be doing it. But if when I make decisions these days, I try and make them based on just listening to my heart. So I've probably got better at listening to my heart through everything that's happened, and you learn to kind of trust yourself a bit more and go, you know what, I'm a good human.
Mm.
I'll I'll make mistakes. I'll continue to make mistakes till the day I die. But it's learning from them, and actually, maybe they're not mistakes. Maybe it's just called life, and they're just experiences. So I guess I now have less judgment. I mean, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. I still judge things, and I still judge myself too much, and possibly other people. But it's been aware of it. I guess I have more awareness now, and I've got better at letting things go. Because holding on to stuff is never going anywhere. Even the good stuff, I think it's good to let things go. Um,
Sure. And what do you think? Like, did your healing journey become the foundation of this adapt plus flow?
Pretty much, yeah. Because I finished the coaching program and I was like, okay. And before that, when I was still kind of full time in recruitment, so I started a YouTube channel, or I was during COVID, I was doing these kind of videos and calling it adapt and flow. So I could have always liked I guess I like the thought of, we need to learn to adapt in life and we also need to flow, let things flow, let your energy flow, let feelings flow and emotions flow. And, so yeah, adapt and flow was essentially the heart of it was me on my own journey, kind of learning to kind of heal and let go, learning to adapt and flow, but also wanting to kind of help other people do that, find their
Got
kind
it.
of true self belief and true power, and let go of some of those thoughts that aren't too healthy for us, and yeah, increase self belief. And I had a mantra that I could have started using, could have just before treatment, and that's like I think that we can do absolutely anything we put our minds to. It just creating the right conditions, and I still have that as a we can do anything we put our minds to. We just need to kind of create the right conditions, and I think that's at the heart of adapt and flow is that we are all powerful beings. So find out what you really want in life, what's really gonna be good for your heart, and have the courage to follow it. Um, have the courage to be who you truly are, and just ultimately we'll get better at saying things. Sometimes when we start to kind of change and tap into who we really are and say show up how we want to, um, we can be worried that we're gonna start disagreeing with people. And actually, like, part of my journey has been realizing that it's okay to disagree with people. It's okay to have a different opinion. It's how you have it. That's the important bit. So
Mm.
you and I can kind of completely disagree on lots of things. If it's how we do it, and that's the I I guess I've been on a bit of a journey of reframing conflict, seeing that a disagreement is conflict, and conflict is fighting and fighting, and I don't want to get into a fight. And
Mm.
that was probably a big thing for me, kind of going through my teenage years and into kind of later life. And it's still in the background. I have to kind of work on every now and then, but I've got a lot better at just kind of going, yeah, life. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's in fact it's really healthy, and it's wouldn't it be boring if we all thought the same thing? Doesn't mean anything about how we feel about each other.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. I will end this section with one last question. So,
Mm.
what do you think if that brain tumor journey never happened? Do you think Damon today would still existed in the same way?
No, no, I think I'd be, say if we, I think I'd be nearly there. I think what the brain tumor did is just accelerated to where I wanted to get. So if I look at the couple of years beforehand, I started reading kind of a lot of self-help books. I was into kind of people like Robin Sharma and Tony Robbins. So I was starting to look for things, how to kind of improve my mind and my body, and maybe kind of take the power back and become a bit more spiritual. But I think the brain should come along just really accelerated it, so it kind of helped me get there quicker. I think without that, I'd probably still be maybe 5 years away from being where I am today.
Mhm.
And so everything happens as it's meant to, but it just accelerated me to get to where I need to be, really, I think. Um,
That's great to know. And I'm still coming back to burnout because I that's the topic I really want to again revisit.
mm,
So, why do people ignore the early signs of burnout? What do you think?
um, Sometimes it's logistical, because you've either got a job to do, or you've got kids to feed, or you're trying to be a parent, whatever it may be. So there's a fear of change, fear of letting people down, fear of having a conversation about this needs to change, and also maybe a lack of appreciation for actually this is something needs to change because I can't keep going. It's not sustainable. Kind of keep on doing what I'm doing. Um, I think because stress is what we're going to call low level. It's not, yeah, it's low level, low grade, but we're still having a physical stress response. So our body's still reacting the same way. Um, but because it's low level and it's constant, basically what happens in that process is when we're in the stress response, which is a lot of our phase these days, the immune system shuts down because your body's saying, right, you need to run away from something or prepare for whatever's coming. We're going to save your energy. And in doing so, we're going to switch your immune system off because that takes up a lot of energy. So you need energy to run away from this tiger that no longer exists. So there's all these different kind of consequences, and your body's kind of producing energy. It's breaking down your body's tissues to give you energy to kind of run away. So all these kind of biomechanical responses are happening in your body that over a long period of time are wearing you down, as well as mentally and kind of emotionally. Um, but it's because it's low level. It's not like if, for example, you were to get hit by a bus, or you were to kind of someone was to put a gun to your head or kind of punch you. That's kind of quite acute. It's like, oh, that's a big thing. So we take those are stresses that we tend to do something about. Is that the right word? That um, we give those kudos. So what's the right word? We give them more respect almost, because they're very sharp and painful stresses. But
Mm.
when they're low level and constantly just in the background, we don't give them the credit they're due, but they're still having a massive effect on our bodies. And we've got too good at tolerating them. But it does, and we can. I think also there's the thing of graduate. It's like putting on weight. If you and I don't see each other, and then a year's time you see me, like you may not say it, but you're like, oh God, you can see that I've put on weight, but because I'm seeing me every day, it happens gradually, and that's the thing with stress. It's kind of gradual, low level, kind of constant. So it's quite hard to kind of you might suddenly get to a point. Sometimes it's when we go on holiday or kind of something
Yeah.
changes and we appreciate that, oh, yeah, I have been really stressed. And that's when it kind of hits us, or kind of the awareness kind of hits us. But because it creeps up on us gradually, it's really hard to see. So we don't give it the credit, and we've got really good at tolerating it. So I think that's where it's sneaky. Burnout is sneaky.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I think for me, it's always helped me now understanding the physiology, of our human bodies. And you think, okay, literally, we are like a battery and a machine that will get worn down. So when you think of it like that, like how can I kind of recharge and reboot and restore and repair myself? Ultimately, when you think about it like that, it helps me because I find that fascinating. But we've all got to find our own way of kind of appreciating the physiology and what literally happens when we put ourselves under kind of too much stress and don't give ourselves the break or reset, rebalance in whatever way that we need to.
It's a very nice perspective as well. And if I really want to talk about that bond, but let me skip all those things. Now, like a quick question. If someone is stuck in life right now, what should they stop right now immediately?
They're stuck in life. I guess it depends on what they're stuck in. Um, have you got something in mind in terms of what they might be stuck?
Something like if they are exhausted or concentrating in too many things and they're
Hmm.
stuck in a point, okay, which one I have to concentrate or which way like I have to take my life moving forward.
Hmm.
What exactly they want to stop?
Well, I think the best way that I'd answer that if I was, say it was someone who was working with me, I'd say, well, where do you want to be in 5 years' time?
Mm,
And then also, what do you want your life to look like now? So design those two things in as much detail as you can, and then also get some maybe dig down a bit deep and have some difficult conversations with yourself and say, where am I now? And what's really kind of going on? Um, and then once we can appreciate where we are and accept it, which can be a little bit difficult if we don't want to admit things sometimes, facing the truth can be kind of hard, but it's the only way forward. So it's that self-assessment, but also we need to know where we're going to go and why. I think that's a big question. If people are stuck, um, when you're making decisions, ask yourself, why am I doing this?
yeah.
What do I really want to achieve? And that can help guide you. Once you can figure out what your values and your principles in life are, they can then help feed your goals and how you get there. Um, and they can help you kind of make the decisions that are right for you. Because quite often when we get stuck on decisions, it's because we're having an internal battle between I think I should be doing this, but I want to do this. And you've got to figure out, well, what do you really want? What's your and sometimes we do things that we don't necessarily want to do, but they help us get to where we want to go. So we could have put up with something in order to kind of get there. But yeah, I think the why are you doing something, and does it align with your values and who you are and where you want to be in life? Um,
Mm.
and if it's part of the process, then brilliant. If it's not, then think maybe I don't need to kind of, well, hopefully it will help you make those decisions and to trust yourself a bit more.
And when it comes to coaching, what you're doing now, can coaching really change someone long term, or all of these things depend on that person specifically? What do you think?
Well, I think coaching is a kind of, it's a long-term process. It's not a quick fix. It's ultimately um, coaching requires a bit of change, a bit of self-reflection, some difficult conversations, and they don't always have to be difficult. It depends what your goals are really when you kind of work with a coach. But it does require a bit of you to change a few things quite often. But again, you've got to kind of figure out the why. So your question, make sure I'm actually answering your question. Is it a long-term strategy? I think was that your.
So my question was like about coaching. Like,
Hmm.
can coaching really help someone in a long-term perspective, or does it depend entirely on the person?
I'd say yes, it does help them in the long term. Um, but ultimately, you need to kind of show up and you need to do the work.
Yeah.
It's coaches are there to um, guide and be with you and kind of almost hold up a mirror. Quite often people will ask a coach, well, what should I do next? And it's like, well, that's not what a coach is about. That's what a teacher's about. And even then, good teachers will actually say, well, what do you think you need to do next? And it's so a coach is trying to help someone assess themselves, but also figure out what they really want, and so that they can actually make the decisions themselves and um, do that kind of confidently. So for me, a coach will help you kind of tap into who you really are, increase your self-belief and your confidence, and help you start making decisions that are good for you and help you get what you want in life. It's one of the biggest challenges, I think, is that sometimes it's not the doing, it's figuring out what do I really want? What are my priorities? And once you know that, then everything kind of you can work back from that. Um, but it's and at different stages in life, we do things that some things are fulfilling our purpose, and other things are actually a bit more of a necessity. Like we all need to pay bills, we all need to kind of earn a living, and it's trying to meet somewhere in the middle and figure
Got
out
it.
what we need to do.
Got it. And also nowadays there are a lot of misconceptions within the stress thing. So, as a coach, what is one myth about stress that you strongly disagree with?
Um, I'd say stress is bad. Um,
Mm,
and there's more to it than just that, but we can use stress as something to make us stronger. And actually, we can just quite literally, we can let go of stress. Scientifically, if you look at the science behind it, the stress hormones are only present in your blood for 90 seconds. After that, they've dissolved, and we are reverberating and kind of feeding off the emotion and the kind of thoughts. So technically, after 90 seconds, you can look at your watch and go, right, I don't need to be stressed anymore. And it's in theory, that's the theory. In practice, it's not quite as simple as that straight away. But it is about letting go. I think the I don't know whether it's a myth, but something that I come up against a lot is actually we have more control over stress than we think. So maybe that's probably my answer. We have more control over stress than we think, and we can let go of stress. And simply by quite consciously saying, I am letting go of stress. If you say it out loud and you believe it, and
got it.
um, what you believe becomes your reality. So if you believe you're letting go of stress, then
Exactly.
you are.
Yeah.
Mm.
And also, why do people confuse being busy with being productive?
Mm. Maybe that comes back to schooling and the world we kind of grew up in. It's if you seem to be busy and it's like, oh, I think there is that if you've got like an hour and you're not doing anything, maybe we fear the judgment, and it's almost like being back at school and someone will say, hang on a minute, you're not doing anything, you should be doing something. So it's like we have this internal monologue of like you need to be doing something constantly, when actually um being productive and being creative, which are also kind of two different things, but you don't have to be busy all the time. It's about being productive and creative whilst you're doing things. And I think if we can retrain ourselves to give ourselves permission to work smart, not hard, you hear that phrase kind of quite often, and it's, you could maybe just work a 3 day week or just work 5 hours a day instead of 8 hours or 10 hours a day. And you could be really condensed in that time. You could be really productive in that time. Um, but I think it's around perception. I think if we can perception, fear of judgment, and also this is the way we do it, and this is the way society kind of does things. You need to be seen to be busy, and if we're not, then that we're not working hard enough. When actually, you don't have to work 24 hours a day or
Mm,
12 hours a day. Sometimes you do if you've literally got a project to get out the door. And if the deadlines are there, but we can play around with that. But it's giving ourselves permission.
I want to add on top of that, like, what do you think, like, today's hustle culture has damaged people emotionally?
Hmm. I've never really got on with the word hustle. I don't know why, but I think because it, in my mind, it's like, could have someone who's a bit annoying. You just come to you and come on, come on. It's like
Yeah.
maybe it's because it sounds like hassle. But I think the hustle culture, I think I get what it means in terms of like it's being resourceful, I guess, and kind of yeah. I wonder what um, I guess I'm not quite sure what everyone has a different version of what hustle means. I guess it's uh, but in my mind, maybe the perception of kind of hustle is that we're kind of pushing ourselves and keep on grinding away until kind of you get what you want. Which to a certain extent, but there's a way of doing it. I think we can be kind to ourselves while we're doing that. If we, otherwise we'll burn out. And maybe sometimes with a hustle culture, we lose focus of what's really important, and you kind of slip into that being busy as opposed to kind of um, being productive and creative. Um,
Makes sense.
yeah,
Got it.
I, I think.
That's fine. So I know the time is cruising, but maybe like a few more questions, then I will end the podcast. So, and
Mm.
when you think about the stress, like, what do you think? Do you think stress today feels different, really different compared to 10 to 15 years ago?
Um, I think so. I think with the age of, with the technology and
Yeah,
connection and connectivity, I think it has changed because it means that, we don't get the escape. And I think that has made a big difference that, there's no switch off. 15 years ago, some of us had emails on our phones and some of us didn't. It wasn't a kind of given. There's the technology to have it, but we didn't all have it. And we didn't all embrace it. So now it's just a given that you have these kind of iPhones or Androids, whatever, and you have all the apps and blah 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 blah. So we're all so connected and overstimulated with so much information at our fingertips. Which on the one, everything has a consequence, and the consequence of that is it can be overwhelming and overstimulating and not good for us. So stress is, I think, just everywhere because it's like we need a break. We need to kind of physically, mentally, and
exactly.
emotionally switch off. Yeah. So yeah, I think so.
And also, why do people still feel empty even after reaching everything, reaching goals they have once dreamed about? Still, they
Mm.
feel that emptiness.
Because we attach so much to the actual thing, and as cheesy or as cliche as it might sound, it's being in the moment and just experiencing the journey. And I know that word's often maybe overlooked, but when we it's like I remember when I was younger, I think a nice example is I think about, oh, I want to get these pair of trainers, and then you get them, and then for about 5 minutes you're like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then once you've got it, you're like, okay, well, what do I do now though? So it's almost like we've got a dopamine hit from we've been building up, building up, building up, and then once you actually get it, you're like, well, life's no different. We've got these material things now. We've achieved this. We've got the promotion. It's like uh, it doesn't really actually make any difference.
Sure.
So it's yeah, work on your inner goals and not your external. It doesn't mean don't have nice things. It just means don't get too attached to them because that attachment kind of then means when we get them, it's like, oh well, what's life's still the same. I'm not quite, yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yep, got it. Got it. Makes sense. And also, just one final question. I just want to wrap it up, and then we will have a quick rapid fire session. Then I will end it. What will be that one advice would you give to someone who feels emotionally numb in the middle of life?
Um, what what was the question? What would be the one piece of
So,
advice?
what is that one piece of advice would you give to someone
Hmm.
who feels emotionally numb in the middle of life?
They feel emotionally numb. I'd say they just spend a bit of time figuring out what you really want in life,
Mm,
and and almost linking back to your thing, not necessarily it doesn't what material things you lot want, but how do you want to be? Who do you want to how do you want to feel?
yeah.
And when you can figure that one out and how you want to be showing up as a person, and then I think that helps you kind of reconnect with your emotions because quite often when we are a bit emotionally and numb, it's because we've shut them off possibly because emotions are heavy and sometimes they can feel a bit uncontrollable. So it's
Mm,
actually I'd possibly ask that person to kind of what's gone on in their lives and actually to have the courage to kind of reconnect with your emotions and that can be but try and find some space and time to kind of do that and you might want to do some of that on your own or some of that with a trusted friend because once you do reconnect with them then it's going to come out and
yeah.
I as a youngster I pushed things down a lot in my 20s and maybe even in
Mm,
my 30s if you push things down at some point they explode out
got it.
so So it's yeah, slowly but surely reconnecting and asking yourself some difficult questions
Questions.
and but being kind to yourself. You've got to be finding the balance, be honest and firm with yourself, but also be kind. Hmm.
That was a lot, lot of knowledge from this podcast. Anyway, like, can I have the quick rapid fire section with you? You have to answer in one word, probably.
I'll have a go.
Okay, yeah. So, one word for stress.
Um, the first word that popped into my head was magic, and I don't know why. Um, I'm just going to say magic.
That's fine. One habit that changed your life.
Breath work,
One thing people should stop doing immediately.
social media. That's a bit of a, yeah, but that's my first answer, I think. Yeah.
Okay, next one. One thing that gives you peace.
Mm, nature.
Okay. First Lord. One fear you had to overcome.
Mm, judgment, fear of judgment from other people. Yeah.
Fine. So the next one is one thing that people should stop chasing.
Um, the perfect life.
Exactly. One reminder everyone listening should hear right now.
Um, you have far more control over your health and your mind than you currently think you do. Uh, yeah.
One word that describes your journey.
Roller coaster.
Wow. Okay.
Mm,
One truth about burnout people ignore.
um, physical symptoms.
Okay, so this is the one final question of this podcast. One sentence you live by, and you gotta explain that. That's not a rapid fire question. One sentence you live by, but if you're happy to explain that, you can. And just with that, we'll end this podcast.
I think the one sentence I live by is we can do anything we put our minds to.
Got
Um,
it.
keep it as simple as that. We can do anything we put our minds to. Hmm.
Got it. Got it. That's so amazing. That's so amazing. Thank you so much, Damon. So I feel like this it was like time went so fast. Thank you so much for Genuinely, thank you for so much for this conversation. I was like, I had this thought, okay, I want Damon like sometime in my podcast because this is the guy I want to talk because a lot of people like me, even though like in my young age, I'm having a lot of stress regarding my work, handling things. So I think genuinely I feel like this conversation is gonna deeply connect with a lot of people. So I
Mm,
think what make this conversation is like they remind people they are not alone, as you mentioned. So behind careers, routines, achievements, social media profiles, there are I know there are real people carrying silent battles every single day because I was one of those persons. So some people listening today might be exhausted, that's fine. Some might be questioning themselves, some might feel lost, pressured, or emotionally stuck. But I genuinely hope this episode reminds people that healing is completely possible, growth is possible, peace is possible. And maybe life is not about becoming perfect, maybe it's about understanding ourselves a little better, as Damon mentioned, maybe being kinder to ourselves and learning how to keep moving forward even through difficult seasons. So to everyone listening, you do not need to have everything figured out. You're not behind, you're not weak for feeling overwhelmed. And sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is simply continue. That's what Damon mentioned. So thank you so much for joining us on Life Behind the Curtain. So until next time, take care of your mind, your body, and your people. Thank you so much.
mm. Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for having me on.